to episode 288 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 1st of July 2024. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelan.
It's too hot.
Graham.
40-seat majority.
And Will.
Hello.
That sounds like an official prediction to me, Graham. I'm going with 15.
I've been sent from the future, as I was explaining earlier.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I don't care about any of that because it's coming home, boys. It's coming home.
It's really not.
We are living in an alternate universe.
Anyway, right, normally we do news, but the news is either really boring or really grim. So I thought, let's not do news today. Let's do something else.
Yay!
And that something else I thought was, let's do a fun game show type thing.
Oh, Jesus.
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you all have to give me your answers to those questions. And then I'm going to arbitrarily decide who gave the best answers. And then at the end, decide who's won.
Sounds fair. Fix. It's a fix.
Well, it is definitely a fix. Yeah, right. So the first question, what's the best way to copy a file from one machine to another?
I need more information, I think. Like, where are these machines? Are they in my house? Are they in the world? What's their locality?
You decide.
Right, okay. I'll tell you what I would actually do. How about that? I would do one of two things. Either SCP it if I had access to both machines and already set up certificates so that I didn't have to remember passwords and all of that kind of thing, or stick it on a USB drive.
I'd take the hard drive out of my machine and bring it over by foot to the other computer and copy it on, because you never said how big they were, so they could be colossal.
Okay, this file might be some sort of 8K video file or something.
Could be.
Seems unlikely.
SFTP or SCP.
Right.
That's the thing I usually use, like ad hoc, and I haven't set up anything or prepared anything in advance, and I need to get one thing from somewhere to somewhere else.
Interesting that none of you said rsync.
Well, I wasn't being serious, but...
Yeah. I thought about it, and I actually do use SyncThing to sync my Steam saves from my retro gaming to my Steam Deck and PC. But I don't actually like SyncThing because the UI is so impossible to understand. But it works.
Well, the correct answer was send it to yourself on Telegram.
At least that's an improvement on email. No, saving it in a draft in Gmail, which is like...
Yeah, there you go. All right. Your nephew messages you asking why he can't install Photoshop on the Linux machine you set up for him. What do you reply?
I reply, just install GIMP, it's the same. Lol.
Why do you hate your nephew? That's what I want to know.
Because he can't work out why he can't install Photoshop on a Linux machine, the fool.
Well, he should install Krita, because that's obviously better than the GIMP, and it's obviously better than Photoshop.
In all the years I've been sending him money for his birthday, he's never once said thank you, so he can fuck off.
Well, the answer is clearly, here is a link to a zip file of an ancient version of Photoshop that works in wine. Like it or lump it.
Are you our nephew?
I feel like it sometimes, yes. All right. You've inherited a client's box that is running CentOS 6. What do you do?
Pour lighter fluid in the front of the box and set that fucking thing on fire.
You leave it. It's everything's fine.
It's from the future, along with
everything's
me.
Fine.
No, surely the answer is you back up the stuff that you need and install a proper distro like Ubuntu.
I'll allow it.
Or do you say, look, CentOS Stream, it's basically the same thing. Let's just use this.
Oh, Joe, fucking isn't. Jesus Christ.
You've just done a fresh install and you've realized that you have a Zoom call in 5 minutes. What now?
Use your phone.
That's what my wife said when I told her these questions. So you might get the point on that one.
Hey.
Well, I would have to install Zoom on my phone, so I'd have to use it in a browser. Can you do that with Zoom? I don't know. I've never used Zoom.
You can, but it's a bit of a pain in the arse and the quality is not very good.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what I do with Teams these days anyway, so fuck it.
And it's really like, it really doesn't want you to use it in the browser. It just keeps prompting you to download shit and it's hidden behind cryptic text. Now, Graham, I'm from the future now and I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah, I'd open up my MacBook.
Ooh.
No, I wouldn't snap install Zoom.
Really?
I don't want that on my Linux box. And Zoom, not Snap.
Oh, a fatal mistake. P45's in the post to you, sir.
No, clearly Snap install zone, because then you can just Snap remove it and it's completely gone.
True. It's true.
Fair.
And it actually works really well in my experience. And it auto updates and all the rest of it. So yay for snaps. Right. Your crucial website has just fallen over, but you have 10 minutes until you have to get on a plane. What now?
Is it mucky JPEGs? It depends how crucial it is.
That's like life or death.
I think you have to turn it off and turn it back on again and get on your plane. And if it's still down, you probably won't know about it.
Unless the plane has Wi-Fi, of course.
Yeah?
Has any of you been on a plane with Wi-Fi yet? I haven't.
I have, and I didn't want to pay for it. So I just got the captive portal, tried a few things to get around it, didn't work, gave up.
Same.
Oh, geez, that's a dangerous thing to be doing. If there was an air marshal on the flight, could have labelled you as a terrorist.
Yeah, thankfully I did have my Casio watch on. So Phelim, this must have happened to you before, surely.
Yeah, it probably has. I have been sat in the security queue holding my laptop on my waist while trying to type with one hand and hold it with the other to try and fix things. But yeah, usually I just whinge and give up because it takes too long to get connected to everything these days. VPN all over the place, jump boxes. It's like by the time you've done it, you have to turn off your laptop and get on the bloody flight.
Well, no, clearly the answer is reboot it. If that doesn't work, then just provision it with loads more RAM and CPU and then reboot it and hope for the best.
In 10 minutes, good luck. You'd be trying to type in your two-factor auth code incorrectly 3 times in a panic trying to do that. It'd take you 20 minutes at least.
Yeah.
I think what the proper thing was, you should have a good monitoring system that can also action things like restarting services. But nobody does that.
I mean, this, like the others, it really depends on if the site was that valuable to me, I wouldn't get on the flight.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that I'm deriving income from, if it's my job, then yeah. And it depends on the length of the flight as well. I mean, if it was, cross-continental and I depended on it for my livelihood, yeah, I wouldn't get on the flight.
I think I would just pay for the Wi-Fi and just try and do it on the flight and just hope for the best. All right. Your preferred desktop environment no longer exists and you have 5 seconds to pick a new one. Oh. What is it? So no more KDE for you two. No more XFCE for me. I don't know, I suppose no more XFCE for you, Will. So you've had about 5 seconds now. Will, go.
Oh, why do you do this to me? It's got to have to be GNOME. I'm sorry, everybody, but it is.
Why?
Because it's probably the one that I'm second most familiar with, if not most familiar with. And I'm assuming that I just want to install it and get on with some work or whatever it is that I've got to do. And I don't really want to spend a week configuring it like I assume I would have to do with KDE.
Absolute lies.
You like the misery.
It's not misery. It's lovely.
What about you, Phelim? You can't use the KDE Plasma desktop.
If I can't use the best desktop that exists, I'm going to use a shell only, like Bash and, Tmux or the likes. CLI only.
What, you wouldn't even have a tiling window manager?
No. Can I be arsed learning shortcuts for that?
How are you going to use Firefox then?
Oh, there's W3M and Lynx. I mean, those are perfectly good browsers.
All right, okay. What about you, Graham?
I thought that Phelim would say something like LXQT, which I probably switch to, failing that or Trinity for a bit of retro KDE charm.
But would it not always feel like you were just far out of reach of the best?
Yeah, but you have to, some things in life are out of your control, and the terrible demise of KDE is just one of them, and I'll just have to get on with it.
Well, it looks like I'm in luck because I could pick the Plasma desktop.
Well, you'd be just getting an upgrade there.
Yeah, exactly. I'd suddenly see the light and be like, oh, why did I waste all those years on XFCE?
Again, you could still do this now, you know.
I've tried Plasma and it was fine, but I just prefer XFCE. Sorry. Oh, I might pick GNOME, I don't know. Probably for similar reasons to Will, because there's not really much you can change on it. It's just, just use it.
I mean, I'm looking at LXQT and it does look nice. It's like the XFC of Qt toolkits. I don't know if I could do it though.
Now I've had more than 5 seconds to think about it. I think I would change my mind and go with Mate because it is enough GNOME to be familiar and enough XFCE to be quick and lightweight.
That's such a cop-out answer, though. If you're an XFCE user, I mean, I could have picked Mate as well, but it's just, it's too similar. I think ultimately it is what I would do, but in this game show land, I'd like to pick something exotic like the Plasma desktop, I think. Well, I've run out of questions now, so thinking about the answers we've got there, Phelim did quite well, Will, you did quite well, Graham, you did quite well, but I think ultimately I win because... my answers were better than all yours.
It's almost like you had some time to prepare.
Yes, almost like I completely rigged this game so that I would just be the winner.
I think we can all agree Linux is the real winner.
Of course we can, yes.
Dear
And feel free to send in questions like this, in a similar vein, and we might do this again in the future if the news is too depressing or boring. show@latenightlinux.com. Okay, this episode is sponsored by 1Password. In a perfect world, end users would only work on managed devices with IT-approved apps. But every day, employees use personal devices and unapproved apps that aren't protected by MDM, IAM, or any other security tool. There's a giant gap between the security tools we have and the way we actually work. 1Password calls it the Access Trust Gap, and they've also created the first ever solution to fill it. 1Password Extended Access Management secures every sign-in for every app on every device. It includes the password manager you know and love, and the device trust solution you've probably heard of on this podcast back when it was called Collide. 1Password Extended Access Management cares about user experience and privacy, which means it can go places other tools can't, like personal and contractor devices. It ensures that every device is known and healthy, and every login is protected. So stop trying to ban BYOD or shadow IT, and start protecting them with 1Password Extended Access Management. Support the show and check it out at onepassword.com/late-night-linux. On to a bit of admin then. First of all, thank you everyone who supports us with PayPal and Patreon. We really do appreciate that. If you want to join those people, you can go to late-night-linux.com/support. And remember that for various amounts on Patreon, you can get an advert-free RSS feed of either just this show or all the shows in the Late Night Linux family. And you even get some episodes early. And if you want to get in contact, you can email show@latenightlinux.com. Let's do some feedback then. Carlo writes, in episode 287, you talked about how you had to share your internet connection to a machine with no Wi-Fi and how you solved it using Network Manager. I often have the same situation. However, I use iMunes for that. I think that's how you said it, imunes.net. And Carlo included a screenshot of the topology, which is very straightforward. But it turns out that this iMunes, or whatever it's called, is actually a potentially very useful tool. If you look at the screenshot on the website for it, it's showing slightly more complicated topology than just sharing Wi-Fi with Ethernet.
Yeah, it's like if I want to share my internet from my phone to my laptop and also replicate an entire artificial network in between it of routers and switches. Yes, correct.
I wonder if this is some of the sort of early examples that we've got of software-defined networking, which is so hot right now. And yet here it is dating back, well, I don't know, well over 10 years, right?
By the looks of that screenshot, yes. I would say so. But it looks like one of those tools where they just never needed to update it because, it's a basic GUI for something that is really happening at a much lower level.
I want to know more about it. I want to know how it works and what it does and what it can simulate because it looks really cool. Like it does actually look cool. Yeah,
it sounds like you should install it and check it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely installing it in a VM though because I don't want that thing fucking my network up.
Yeah. An anonymous person writes, in the era of cloud-first computing, is the desktop OS we use still relevant, considering that most desktop apps people use nowadays are either built with web technologies, Electron, or are just web apps accessed from the browser? A few examples come to mind. Spotify, Gmail, Outlook, ProtonMail, VS Code, Slack, Telegram, YouTube, Facebook, banking. Perhaps another way to frame the question is this. How many native desktop apps, GUI-based, do you use regularly that are exclusive to Linux, or at least use Linux toolkits, GTK and Qt, etc.? Or do you find it's mostly the terminal that keeps you on Linux?
Well, I sort of contest that Telegram is one of those because Telegram's a native app.
Not web.telegram.org, it isn't.
Yeah, well, you can go onto your shitey version of it if you want to, but I use a proper client. But I would say vast majority of my applications are Qt based.
Right, but they are not exclusive to Linux, are they? And that's what this anonymous person is asking. I would imagine most of the applications that we use, I mean, I'm looking now at Mumble, Firefox, and Audacity. There's absolutely no reason why I couldn't be using them on Windows or macOS.
Okay, well then 0% because all of KDE can be got on Windows. So
yeah,
I don't get that as a question. I massively contest the cloud first computing nonsense as well. Bullshit. There's a network that I use networking to talk to other machines. It's not cloud anything though.
Oh, Jesus, we've got you on your old hobby horse now.
Yeah, I think you're overthinking the question. And I don't think it's that complicated. From my perspective, the answer is there are no applications that I use every day that are Linux exclusive. But that's not why I use the Linux desktop. I use the Linux desktop because of everything else that's around it, the open source community being the main reason. And I'm able to use the applications that I want to use. The choice of desktop is not relevant, but it's also not the main reason for me using it every day, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'd say it is the main reason why I use Linux every day, because
same.
I like what Kwin does specifically that I can't recreate on any other operating system or window manager. But the thing that keeps me on Linux more than anything else that I'm always reminded of when I use macOS or Windows is that any small tool that you often need, there's hundreds of them, but it's, something like unraring a file or some weird compression format or graphics conversion tool, or there's always some kind of cost associated with it or some proprietary element to it or an app store required for it. And nearly always on Linux there isn't, and you can just do that, and it's far more flexible, and you're never kind of stopped from trying to do things like that. And I think, Linux is still, or always has been and still remains far ahead of the curve when it comes to that kind of open source diversity.
I've had the misfortune of using a Citrix server to admin a Linux box on the far end. And my God, Windows is a shocking shower of shit. Putty needs to fuck off. The guy who made Putty and then decided that he needed to change the SSH key format to be his own thing. Fuck off, you fucking wanker, honestly. and the copy paste. So you double click to highlight a word and then you can right click it and then it auto pastes it. Who fucking thought that was an idea? Oh, it's just fucking dog shit. It really is.
Well, it's funny that this anonymous person asked this question because I was thinking about this the other day. You lot are, I'm not going to say you're old, but you're not young anymore. And I have noticed a trend that as people get older, their patience with open source and computers not working and shit like that runs out. And people generally have a bit more money as they get older. And basically what I'm getting at is lots of Linux people just end up with a Mac. And I know, Graham, you do have a Mac for your music and stuff.
Yeah. But
all of us still would prefer to use Linux where possible. Why? Like, what's different about us, I suppose is what I'm getting at here. Failing, I know you're just weird.
Well, no, it sounds comedic, right? But if I wasn't able to use Linux, I don't think I'd want to use a computer. If I had to go and use a Windows machine day in, day out, I'd just lose the will to do it.
What about a Mac, though? I mean, I know you say you've literally never touched a Mac, so you don't know.
I've never overly used them. I've seen them. I hate that whole thing where the title bar changes with the application. I just think it's daft. I don't know. It's just not for me.
The dogs agree with you.
Oh, fucking dogs.
I think there's a certain amount of truth in that. I do find myself caring less and less about the way in which something needs to be fixed, and I lose interest in the amount of work that it takes to keep something operating. Maybe the reason I stick with it is because I don't want to have to learn something new anymore. Maybe there's an element of truth in that. But the points that Graham made earlier on about the ease in which there is a tool that will do the job that you want, or you can fix something up in a way that works in exactly the way you want. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I hadn't really considered that before. I feel that a Mac is an option for lazy people, for sure. But also I think I'm lazy in that I don't want to learn how to use it properly, so I'm just sticking with what I know.
I think it's more stubbornness with me, and I suspect with you, Will, because you did try a Mac, and in a way, like, it does just work or whatever, like, as the stupid phrase goes. And things generally do work, but in such an opinionated, this is how it works kind of way. Whereas I often don't want the thing to work in the normal way. I want it to work in the way I want it to work. And the stubbornness in me forces me to use Linux as a result of that, because I cannot get a Mac or Windows. Well, Windows I generally can actually, but I just don't want to use Windows for security reasons, because I just don't trust Microsoft to not be fucking incompetent when it comes to that shit. Whereas the Mac is just, it's too opinionated.
And this is another important aspect of it, in that you invest time learning how things work in Linux, and it's not going to change. And if it changes, you have the power to say, no, I'm not going to change. I'm going to stick with what I was using before. Whereas you don't with Mac OS and Windows, not to the same extent, and not at all in some cases, like development on Mac OS.
Well, yeah, like I still find myself sometimes running sudo service blah restart or whatever rather than systemctl.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an example of when things have changed, but the old way still works.
Yeah.
I just wish that KDE would implement a skeuomorphic calendar so I could see the page flip over every now and again. What a bunch of wankers.
It's funny, my friend who was an iPhone user for years, he needed access to the file system, so he went to Android. And he said, it's all good and everything, but why does the calendar icon just say a random day of the week and not the actual date? I said to him, what? And he showed me someone else's iPhone. Look, the calendar shows the dates, like, you know, the 23rd of the month or whatever. And that just seemed really weird to me that someone would care about that stuff. And like how you look at the clock thing and it's moving and just little bits like that that are clearly attention to detail, but just not at all the kind of detail that I give a shit about.
I quite like that thinking from a design perspective, you know. I like the way that somebody at Apple has said, look, we've got this icon that is showing a date. How useless is it that the date is static, that it doesn't change? Why can't we make it perform some service? And they've designed it and they've implemented it, and that's it. I quite like that.
Well, you are quite a fan of folly generally, aren't you?
To be fair, I am, yeah. Eye candy and folly.
I'd be worried about the second hand on the clock that's like 30 by 30 pixels eating battery life as it slowly ticks around the icon.
Yeah. Well, that's why I have a black wallpaper, because someone told me once that if you have a black wallpaper, it uses less battery and stuff on your laptop.
You could use that crutch all you want. You're just a boring, sad individual.
Well, if you have an OLED screen, then it is actually true. I have one OLED screen on my phone and that's it. Right, well, we better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when, who knows, it might be discoveries and stuff. We'll have to see. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've not been Taylor Swift.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.